Good evening. My name is Marvin Wolf. I live in the unincorporated portion of the county. I was formerly chair of the Washington State Jail Industries Board. I was appointed by Governor Locke, reappointed by Governor Gregoire twice. I was also a member of the Whatcom County Blue Ribbon Panel on Criminal Justice. I think the important issue with regard to jails generally is that jails are for the incarceration of people who have committed crimes, have been sent there by the judicial system to protect the rest of society. People with mental illness problems are a separate problem. They need to be dealt with professionally in properly equipped facilities in a timely manner. And those are two separate issues. Combining them here is wrong. We need to address the needs of the jail. The people who are working there, your employees, are in danger every day that they're at work. It's a dangerous workplace. Many years ago, almost 20 years ago, it was declared that the jail was unsafe in case of a special event occurring there. The loss of life would be catastrophic, and there would be no way that the county could avoid the horrendous liability that would occur if that happened. We all know that the county cannot afford to have death or injury on their hands. And that's what will occur if there's a major event in that jail. I have watched it closely over the years. I've been in it dozens and dozens and dozens of times. And I watch the cracks in the wall continue. I see the systems failing. And I worry each night that the people we trust to take care of their affairs that are dedicated to the protection of their citizens are put in jeopardy by the failure of the county to provide them with a new facility. It's your obligation to no longer kick the can down the road, but to act now in a prompt and professional fashion, separate the two issues, and go ahead and approve a safe county jail in a timely fashion. Thank you.
Thank you. Bruce Ayers, Valerie Lloyd, and Bill Lafreniere.
Let Marvin get back to his seat. My name is Bruce Ayers, Bellingham, Washington. You've heard a lot here tonight, a lot of good information, a lot of good facts. Bill Elfo's introductory remarks, I think, covered a lot of the questions. We're confronted tonight with the opportunity to move forward on a facility that's humane and safe. I pose a couple questions. Are we proud of the correction officers, the administrators, and the people who keep our jail working under some extraordinarily poor conditions? Of course we are. Are we proud of the medical professionals and the volunteers who work in our mental health facility, who have to work in the jail, who have to interview people through chow holes? Are we proud of those who have no interview rooms, who can't do their jobs? $4 million a year in behavioral mental health, and they have to interview inmates and people, their clients, through chow holes. They don't have separate facilities or even an interview room. Are we proud of those volunteers? Of course we are. Now, this jail is not Bill's jail. This jail is not Jack's jail. This jail is Whatcom County's jail. It's your jail. When you became elected as representatives of Whatcom County, you own this jail. Now let me ask you a question. Are you proud of the facility you're providing these professional workers, these medical workers, and the volunteers to perform their very important task? Are you proud of that facility? Of course not. Every one of you have stated you're not happy with the facility. Every one of you has said we need a new jail. It's time to stop trying to figure out why we can't have one. 20 years ago, the Blue Ribbon Committee said this jail was failing. Some of you have been dealing with this jail, Pete, for 20 years, 18 years. The taxpayers provided money in 2004. A feasibility study was done. A proposal was made. It was $160 million in 2011. That was changed and altered. Now it's $100 million. We hear about $1,000 a month for every month of delay. And you're talking about putting it off to November? Even if you voted, the voters voted in August, we won't have a new jail till 2019, 4 years from now. We cannot afford to continue to push and kick this can, as Marvin said, down the road. It's time to act. Replace the jail we have today. It's not a bigger jail. It's 521 beds. The International Commission Institute on Correction says a jail is at full capacity at 80% because you have different classes of inmate. You've got men, women, gangs, mental health. You have to have a certain percentage of beds available. At 80%, that's 416 beds. Our average population is 403 right now. It's not a bigger jail. It's a replacement jail. Build the new jail.
Thank you. Valerie Lloyd, Bill Lafreniere, and Amy Kahn.
Valerie Lloyd, I live in Acme. This is a very specific framework about supporting change in behavior that could fit into broader programs. Behavior change is more likely to occur when desired behaviors are responded to at a higher rate than undesired behaviors. Technically, this is the finding of countless studies in the realm of applied behavior analysis, ABA, since the early 60s. Responding powerfully enough to desired behaviors as a means to permanent behavior change is counter to what comes naturally to many of us. Certainly, it is counter to what happens in our criminal justice system. The concepts of reinforcement and punishment are complicated and steeped in controversy. Many people are repulsed by the idea of rewarding desired behaviors when they think the behaviors should occur without attention from others. Frequently, reward systems are considered failures because behavior change is not seen. Rather than examine the details of the system, that outcome is used as a reason to discontinue the rewards. It's important to understand the following basic tenet. The person doing the behavior is who determines whether the response is rewarding or punishing. For example, if I smile and put a sticker on the poster on the fridge, my teenager is much less likely to show me she's finished her homework than if I offer the use of the car Saturday afternoon. Another example, might a young person caught for shoplifting be more inclined to allow inspections of his pockets and backpacks if he's offered a gift certificate to a music store rather than a trip to visit the tulip fields with his parents? These are petty examples. However, I assure you, with more information, time, experience, and examination, you would be able to see the connections to the chronic issues facing criminal justice. Another tenet of ABA. Rewards can be backed off as desired behaviors strengthen. Punishment cannot be backed off in effective response to undesired behaviors. I can set up a system in which I require evidence of increased strengthened desired behaviors while backing off my responses. Ultimately, I can offer rewards at unpredictable, variable intervals of time. If I want undesired behaviors to stop and I want to use punishment as the motivator, I have to set up a system in which I provide punishment every time the undesired behavior occurs. If I don't provide that punishment every time, the undesired behavior will continue. Doesn't it make you wonder why we use punishment at all? It's a lot of work for us, and in the criminal justice system, it costs too much. It may cost more than paying offenders to stay out of jail would cost. Frequently, the concept of punishment is based on revenge, not change. I know what I'm saying brings up objections and questions. This is the tip of an iceberg, and even though the Titanic sunk, aren't we now desperate to examine and save icebergs? Supporting behavior change through the use of the principles of applied behavior analysis would be a drastic, complicated, and very likely effective paradigm shift for the Whatcom County justice system. It would have to be integral to the design of the jail. It would have to include elements of wraparound support addressing victim support, people's needs, and the collective effects of previous adverse experiences in their lives. I encourage you to seek experts in the field of ABA who are working within the criminal justice system and other realms such as education and mental health. It will be worth your time and ultimately benefit everyone.
Thank you.
What was ABA?
Can you tell us again what ABA stood for?
Applied behavior analysis. It's most popular in the field of autism right now, but it's been around for as long as people have.
Great, thank you. Bill Lafreniere, Amy Kahn, and Anastasia Metcalfe.
Hello, I'm Bill Lafreniere, a Whatcom County resident. For years, we've been hearing of the crumbling jail. A lot of money is spent in maintaining public buildings. It seems the bigger the buildings, the more costly it is to keep them usable. We are told that a large earthquake would cause great loss of life in the event of an earthquake. Okay, I goofed that up. But anyway, but such an event would cause widespread... Okay. And new structures may not fare much better than the old ones. I want to keep my taxes low. Many people are housed in jail when less expensive alternatives are possible. I would like you to be involved in the planning of an alternative I will call Parks for Homeless program. Many supportive people are required in deciding the scope and operation of the program. Once operations are outlined, the group would present the plan to a nonprofit for sponsorship. I believe Parks for Homeless must be a nonprofit program operated by private donation and collection of rental fees under contract for municipal government. Its purpose would be the construction and management of low-cost tent and RV spaces, preferably on city park property. Therefore, operation would be contingent upon city council approval. My vision is that there would need to be several segregated camps serving people with varying needs and problems. They would be designed as managed temporary camps, each surrounded by chain link fencing with portable shower and toilet structures serviced by a tanker truck. Each would have a central meeting structure built by volunteer labor. That structure would provide cold weather protection and meeting rooms for various social service needs. Donated RVs could be repaired and used for housing. Some camps would have RV spaces, but sanitation would be centralized for all camps. Camps could be serviced by transit and have limited parking areas as well. Remote tent areas could be established for folks with drug and alcohol problems with extra law enforcement presence, with an emphasis on conflict resolution training, special access for community mental support and health care needs. These camps would be especially helpful in providing areas for people that are often too destructive for rental housing, providing a place for those evicted from public housing. There exists the need to separate substance abuser and sex offenders from the general public. Isolated areas could be provided for sex offenders where they could meet their terms of probation. When we give substance abusers free housing, we encourage more of a bad thing. Young people need to see that partying with their friends will not lead to a life of handouts. Education emphasizing independent living could be provided. People that avoid substance abuse could rent larger and quieter camping areas with spaces for trailers and motorhomes and private parking. I would like you to participate in the initial planning of this program. Please provide your name and contact information to me at the door. Thank you.
Thank you. Amy Kahn, Anastasia Metcalfe, and David Wilbrecht.
Good evening, Amy Kahn. I live in Bellingham, Washington, and please forgive me while I read from my phone. I listened to the executive's presentation this afternoon, and I realized that he sees the jail project as simply another public facility construction project. I urge you to consider that constructing a jail is inherently a public policy decision that requires a bigger, broader perspective. I absolutely agree that a new jail is needed, but it would be irresponsible to put forth a ballot measure on the details of the building without also considering the larger criminal justice context. Sorry, I have to scroll. And how it impacts jail population and the facility. There's a national trend toward jail alternatives away from mass incarceration, supported by people like Newt Gingrich, the ACLU, the Koch brothers, and Van Jones, and we cannot afford to ignore that trend in Whatcom County. We've already spent $1 million on consultants to advise us on how to construct a jail. How about spending a fraction of that to hire consultants on saving taxpayer money through alternatives to jail? Imagine it's 1988 and your office typewriter dies. Your boss wants to buy you a new one, but you're pretty sure there's better technology out there. Option one, you listen to your boss and buy a new typewriter, only to be laughed at in 6 months when everyone else in the office buys a computer. Option two, you bring in a consultant from Apple and become the leaders in your industry. Here are just a few jail alternatives and diversion programs that make great sense from both a fiscal and humanitarian perspective. Funding a community court that would hear low-level offenses and suggest alternative sentences such as restitution, restorative justice, counseling, and community service. Creation of a crisis care facility to divert people with mental health or substance abuse emergencies, which I know you discussed earlier today. Funding for a law enforcement diversion program, such as the LEAD program in Seattle, which allows officers to bring people directly to a facility for treatment or counseling instead of booking them into jail. Support for bail reform, which means adopting a risk assessment protocol to keep low-risk pretrial folks out of jail instead of spending millions of dollars to house people who have not been convicted of any crime. Creating meaningful reentry programs for those released from jail to ease transition back into society so they don't keep cycling through the jail. And support for policy and code changes around failure to appears or failure to pay fines or other non-violent offenses. I urge you to resist pressure to vote on an incomplete proposal. Please make sure it's part of a comprehensive plan for smart justice in Whatcom County. Thank you.
Thank you. Anastasia Metcalfe, David Wilbricht, and Chris Halderman.
I want to thank you all very much for the service that you give up your time with your families and time out of your life to be servants to the public. And I really appreciate this opportunity, and I thank you all for the service that you give. I'm very grateful.
Can you start with your name just to make sure we're
Sure,
got
thank
the right
you.
person?
My name is Anastasia Metcalfe.
Thanks.
I live in Bellingham. My mom, for 40 years, was a community-based service provider. She worked with many, many different nonprofits. And at her 90th birthday, we had 100 people in attendance, many of whom she had taken out of a bar, delivered them to rehab, called them when they were in jail, helped them get their families together when they had lost custody of their kids, and basically repaired their families and repaired their lives. There were people that came to her party that were the heads of rehabilitation homes. There were people that came that had given their life to service of other people. There were people that had kids and grandkids who never would have even survived their 20s if my mom hadn't been there to be able to give caring service in the community that was totally outside of the criminal justice system, but working together with the criminal justice system. Judges used to call my mom and say, hey, can you take another one? We've got an emotionally disturbed young adult and we need a foster place for this child because we know that they don't belong in jail and we know they don't belong in juvie. Can you please help us? And she did. So she had many, many, many foster children. I know that Bellingham is full of caring people that deliver services to the best extent that they can. All the different organizations that function to help repair the fragile fabric of our community, because it is indeed fragile. There are people that are so close to being homeless that lose their job or that have an illness and that are so very close or indeed are homeless and come to many of the many different organizations in town, one of which I volunteer at in order to receive just a few dollars to get them through or help with a utility bill. And all of them have incredible stories and have an amazing amount of ability to be resourceful and find the resources that they need. So I am very impressed with the level of presence that it takes to navigate being poor, being mentally ill,
30
being
seconds,
homeless.
please.
And the few stories that I have heard of contact with our criminal justice system here in Bellingham, I'm shocked and appalled at how different the reality is here from where it was in my town when my mom was working. Because people don't have the safety net of someone to provide the pre and the post, as this gentleman formerly was saying. Their families here are not supported when they don't have the wherewithal to be able to do it all by themselves. And we need to have the community be repaired before people even get into the criminal justice system. So the more we grow a healthy community, the more we will solve the problems of the future. Because our kids in high school now, we have lost terrible numbers of them to suicide and accidents and drugs. And I'm sorry I'm overstating my time. But I really appreciate your attention. Thank you so much. We have a big problem coming in our youth. We must take care of our community.
Thank you. David Wilbricht, Chris Halterman, and Darren Smith.
Good evening. My name is Dave Wilbricht. I'm the city manager of the city of Blaine.
So nice to see you tonight. I just wanted to comment on a couple of things. First off, I want to thank the sheriff, the county executive, and his staff for working so hard with small cities on the recent changes to the MOU. It's been a lot of effort. They put a lot of energy into it, as well as ourselves, and I think you're going to see a good document at the result in the end of that. I'm going to make a recommendation to our city council next week, 2 weeks from last night, to approve that MOU. We're in the process of finalizing it now, and I think we're very satisfied with the outcomes of that. So I just wanted to let you know that. We did a lot of work. City of Linden in particular, their administrator just really pulled his weight, as well as Tyler in Jack's office. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Chris Halterman, Darren Smith, and Christine Hancock.
Chris Halterman, Whatcom County. It seems like we're talking a lot about apples and oranges here tonight. One part is the fact that we've got a jail that 18 years ago the voters of Whatcom County approved to have rebuilt so that it could be safe and adequately house the people that were being placed there, whether they're criminals, if they happen to have a drug problem. I don't believe it was ever intended to be a housing area for the mentally ill. But those are having this restorative justice or this triage is a separate issue from getting the jail built. And my husband said this morning, he says, well, why do we have to do another 0.2%? I thought we had already agreed that we wanted to pay for this. And I said, well, dear, that was 18 years ago. And the cost of this thing is 3 times what it was. And the longer that you put it off, the more it's going to cost. It's not something that doesn't have to happen. It does have to happen. I believe that having the statistics of 403 people housed there is, as on an average, and you've got a bed for 521, that's pretty reasonable. 521 seems pretty reasonable to have a facility built like that. Having the ability to add additional if necessary. Ideally, it would have cost a lot less if you did it all now and didn't need to use that facility, but apparently they're trying to compromise. So I hope that you will take the time to move this forward now. If you wait until November, so be it. Let the people vote on it, but you're going to have a tough time selling to this community that you're really going to build a jail this time. That's my greatest fear, because we already approved one time to give you the money to do it. And thus far, we approved it to get that 0.1%. And that money has been sitting there for 18 years being spent on other things. So as far as restorative justice, that seems to be a judicial, legislative thing. Great. That was how the founders originally wanted it done. They didn't want anybody sent to jail. They wanted you to actually provide retribution. But there was a thing that came along that said, hey, that's slavery to ask people to go and help rebuild the damage that they did to you. So restorative justice is a great process. I'd much rather have people actually make up for what they did, but that's not something that I believe you can do here as a council. That's something that has to be dealt with on a state level through our judicial system and laws. Please move this 0.2%
30 seconds, please.
Forward. Let the citizens of Whatcom County get this jail built. The one that's here right now is a complete hazard. It's a complete liability. I don't believe anybody in this community wants to have it on their shoulders that either a corrections facility person or anybody who is incarcerated there right now is harmed or dies because of that. It's up to us to get this done. Let the people vote on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Darren Smith, Christine Hancock, and Paul Meyers.
Hello, I'm Darren Smith, and I live in Whatcom County. Now, I'm here as a union representative for the staff that work at the jail, and also as a concerned citizen of Whatcom County who believes this community needs a new jail sooner rather than later.
Closer to the mic a little bit. Thanks.
Is that better? Okay. Now, I could talk all day about the different reasons we need a new jail, but having said that, I would like to make a few comments about overcrowding and one of the many ways it can and does affect the safety of all who reside and work at the jail. It's important to note that the dedicated staff that work at the jail 24/7, 365 days a year are often there 10, 12, or more hours per day. Tonight I'll mention one of many incidents that occur at the jail on a much too frequent basis due to the deplorable and overcrowded conditions of the jail. Just last week, deputies had to move an agitated inmate from the cell he shared with 2 other inmates. This person could no longer take being on the floor and having his head near the toilet as others used it. Sadly, this is a common occurrence when you have 3 human beings in a cell designed for 1. Having worked in the corrections field for nearly 17 years, I can tell you firsthand that the type of conditions that exist in the jail now is a powder keg waiting to explode. This is not a matter of if, but when. Anytime you move an inmate, the chance of an incident involving use of force increases. But when you have to move inmates on a very frequent basis, those chances increase exponentially. This is what our deputies face every day they come to work. I believe nobody here wants to read about a deputy or an inmate who is severely injured or worse, due in whole or in part because of the terrible conditions these people have to live and work under. This is something I would not want on my conscience, and this is why I'm here tonight. The need for a new jail is real, and the reality is that it needs to happen now. It's important to note a new jail with increased capacity will provide safer conditions for inmates and staff alike through modernization and design. Safer conditions for staff will equal safer and more humane conditions for inmates. Let us do the right thing for the segment of our population that resides within the jail, and let us do the right thing for the dedicated deputies that serve our community by working at the jail. Build the facility this community needs. The time is now. On diversion and alternative programs, they're great. I think we can all agree that they're very needed. And programs that are rooted in best practices that have proven results, positive results, should be an important collaborative part of our criminal justice system, and definitely should be looked at and definitely needs to be funded. But it should not in any way, shape, or form delay or cease the process of this new jail being built. Thank you.
Thank you. Christine Hancock, Paul Meyers. Christine Hancock, Paul Meyers.
Good evening. My name is Paul Meyers. I live in the county, and I chair the Whatcom County Civil Service Commission. I want to address the council to emphasize a need to try and get this on the August ballot, the initiative. The time has come to really move on this thing. My background, I was a pilot for United Airlines for 36 years. I was on the Airline Pilots Association Safety Committee for 20 years and on the National Accident Investigation Team for 5 years. Because of my background, 2 years ago, I was asked to observe the fire drill at the jail. And I was astounded at what I saw. Most of you have probably ridden on a 757. Great airplane to fly, but if you're at the very back of it and the only door they're using to deplane is that far left door in the front, it can take you a long time to get off of it. They cram as many of those miniature seats in the back as they possibly can, and that's what you have. When I walked into the hallway of the second floor of our jail, that's immediately what came to mind. All those prisoners and the members on the staff there have to go out a door at the far end of the jail. It's the only one available to them because the one on the other end has to be used for firefighters to come on. If you will read the reports from that particular fire drill, it will astound you. It was 25 minutes before the firefighters got into the jail and actually would have an effect on getting water on the fire. That's how long it took to move them. You have all those prisoners moving for one set of stairs from 3 floors at the end of that building, all trying to get out. And you had firefighters that finally had to come up those stairs on the drill because they were unable to get in the other end. The National Institute of Corrections, as the sheriff talked about, estimated if there's a major fire there, it will probably take about a 50% loss of life of those that are in the jail. There's really no place to put those prisoners once you have them out. Where are you going to put them? You don't have enough staff to watch to see where they go.
30 seconds, please.
So I urge you, this is a time bomb. The fuse is lit, and nobody knows how long that fuse is. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Riley Sweeney, Karen Steen, and Ward DeVoe.
Hello, Council. My name is Riley Sweeney. I live in Bellingham.
I have just a brief, I have the scariest thing I could possibly bring, continuity. I have the Jail Planning Task Force report. You guys will, of course, remember that we put together this lovely Jail Planning Task Force. It included such wonderful people as Wendy Jones, our jail chief, Caleb Erickson, representing the sheriff's correctional deputies, Marianne Caldwell, representing the county executive's office, as well as citizen activists and community members. We all came together and put together some recommendations. So this is from the final report, and I quote, which is available on the Whatcom County website, and I love the redesign. From the final report. We recommend that space be found for a mental health triage facility with sufficient capacity and capability to offer pre-booking diversions from jail. They all agreed to this. This is what their recommendation was. I would really like to see that as part of the final package. The size of the jail, lovely. Vote in November, great. I want to see that mental health triage center as part of this package. Now, you guys asked about other alternatives. I would really like if we took a look at the Kentucky bail bond system. Kentucky, a bastion of liberalism, has this system in which they have cut corporate bail bondsmen out of the law and justice system. Instead of people profiting off of unfortunate circumstances, they have a court administrator look at the case, determine if they're a flight risk, and instead have it's a whole system. I'm not going to try and summarize it in my pitifully few minutes here, but you should take a look at the Kentucky bail bond system as an alternative to keep people out of jail who don't need to be there. That's it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Karen Steen, Ward DeVoe, and Gathia Weiss.
Hi there. Karen Steen from Bellingham. I'm a retired RN and a family nurse practitioner, total 35-plus years of practice. My final 7 years as a family nurse practitioner I spent in community and public health departments and nursing. 5 of those years I've split up between the Monroe State Prison and the Seattle-King County Department of Public Health, the jails in both downtown and in Kent. Downtown, 2 of the 8 floors at that time of the jail housed the mentally ill. And this was the mentally ill that were diagnosed, not the undiagnosed, not the post-traumatic stress syndrome, not the veterans, not the homeless, not the substance abusers. 2 of the 8 floors, and I would think it's still that way, were diagnosed mentally ill. I haven't committed to memory what our numbers are as far as the ratio of our jail population that is diagnosed mentally ill, but I would think it's comparable. So from firsthand experience, incarcerating our mentally ill population is morally indefensible. I would go into those cell blocks with 18, 20-year-old men and women and just think that that's somebody's son, that's somebody's daughter. And it goes on. And I know that we inherited this problem 40 years. I know that this problem all started, as I understand it, when the federal government started defunding mental health services. And it's just trickled down. It's a trickle-down disaster. So I understand the position that you're in. I understand the position that we as a community are in. And I think you all would agree, including Mr. Lowes and Sheriff Elfo, that incarcerating our mentally ill is morally indefensible. And rather than accommodate this trickle-down disaster, I would hope that the creative energy of this community and of all of you, Mr. Lowes, Sheriff Elfo, could come together with a program that leads this nation. And what are our alternatives?
30 seconds, please.
So I would suggest a process. I think the specific suggestions that have been made are excellent by the people that are here. I would suggest that before we decide on a new jail, we remove the mentally ill population from the needs projection. That we craft an initiative measure and funding plan that would address the mental health needs separate from the criminal element or the criminal incarceration needs. Specifically, I would support most of the specific suggestions that have been made by the people here and the restorative economics and action plan that's developed by the Restorative Community Coalition. The specifics that are suggested in their Phase 1 plan are excellent, and I would just like to draw your attention and the community's attention to that document that they've developed. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Thank you. Ward DeVoe and Gathia Weiss. And Gathia is the last one. Anybody else that wants to speak after that certainly will have an opportunity.
Hi. Excuse me. My name is Ward DeVoe, and
I just got more lists.
My name is Ward DeVoe. I'm a citizen of Bellingham and an emergency physician at St. Joseph Hospital. And I just wanted to talk to you briefly tonight to stress the importance of, in planning and building this new jail, the appropriate inclusion of mental health and substance abuse triage facilities and management of those patients accordingly. You know that myself and the other people that work in the emergency department at St. Joseph Hospital take great pride in the fact that we take care of everyone at any time for anything. But the reality is that the mentally ill and the substance abuse patients that we receive currently, they're diverted from the jail, that end up, because they have no place else to go, end up in the emergency department, take up a disproportionate amount of our time and energy. We're a limited resource. This is a county that only has one hospital servicing the entire county. And when our time and effort is diverted in managing these very intensive patients, we're not able to take care of the other trauma and medical patients of the county. So I would just briefly wanted to come here tonight to stress the importance of the appropriate use of mental health and substance abuse triage and managing those patients appropriately so that they don't end up crowding our emergency department even further. Thanks very much.
Thank you. And I'm going to start from the new list. Gathia's next, and then Andrea Hawks and Josh Soretti.
My name is Gathia Weiss. I live in Bellingham. And I want to thank the County Council for holding this public hearing. I think it is important to have elected officials who exercise their legislative authority, and I commend you for doing so. And I also mentioned I've sent a letter in already to the council. I hope that you read it if you've not yet done so. And as a general note, I'd like to ask that the council institute some sort of ping-back system, so when a citizen does write a letter, that we know that it's been received. Just a simple thank you would be excellent. And I segue from that. We've heard a lot of information tonight, and we've heard from people who seem to be even more knowledgeable than they were able to cram into their excellent 3-minute presentations. And I hope that the council finds a mechanism for getting that information to you and that you give it due consideration. I think that there's some ideas here that can help to relieve the pressure that we all should be very concerned about on our workers in our current jail as well as those incarcerated there. This is an immediate pressing concern. And the fact of the matter is the jail build-out schedule doesn't address immediate pressing concerns. But although I'm not an expert, I think we do have some experts in the audience tonight who know some things that we can do right now that would help. And I think we should be starting to do those things. The thing that I also think we need to mention is the relationship between crime rates and getting caught, or even better, being deterred before a crime even takes place. And that, I think, takes community policing. It does not take big fancy office buildings. And the other thing I would like to ask that we all try to do, and in my opinion, we should stop calling all these other programs alternative. The main thrust of our efforts as a society should be on programs that address people's needs, not on jailing them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Andrea Hawks, Josh Soretti, and Deborah Holly.
Andrea Hawks is left.
Okay. And Josh, Deborah, and Susan Walker.
Hi, I'm Josh Soretti. I live in the city of Bellingham. And I think that an important diversion program, given that 2/3 of the people in Whatcom County Jail right now have not been convicted of any crime, is a program that has recently been passed in New Jersey that's going to come into effect in 2017, and that's eliminating cash bail entirely. Bail is something that doesn't make any money for the county. It's something that costs the county money because everybody who is in there and can't pay bail, it costs about $100 a day to keep them. The only person making money off it is the bail bondsman companies, and cutting them out of the equation and eliminating cash bail and instead evaluating people based on their likelihood to appear and also providing services during that time will address recidivism much more effectively than that time spent in jail. I think it's a little troubling and very disingenuous the way that people have framed the overcrowding in the jail as an issue that can only be relieved through building a new jail. I think it is inhumane what's going on in the Whatcom County Jail, but I think it's inhumane for any person to be in a cage. And I think that we need to look at alternatives, as the previous speaker said, as the primary thing we should be focused on. I think that many of the people who have argued in favor of the jail have a lot to gain from it. DLR Group constructs prisons. They tell every community that gets to them that they need to build a new prison. They design and construct prisons for a living. With all due respect to the sheriff, I would also like a $100 million new office. I don't envy his job, but we need to look at the people who are calling for this and to think about how they're invested in it too. Ultimately, I think when we're planning for the future, we shouldn't be planning to incarcerate more people. We should plan to incarcerate less, and we need to look for ways to make that happen any way possible. So I thank you for holding this, and I thank everyone who's working here and everyone who stuck around tonight. An important conversation to have. Thank you all.
Thank you. Deborah Holly, Susan Walker, and Chris Phillips.
For the record, my name is Deborah Holly, and I'm a resident of Lummi Island, Whatcom County. And I have left my notes back there in the very back seat, so I'm going off the cuff. I didn't realize that specifically we were to be citing examples of specific diversion programs and so on as alternatives to incarceration. However, I would be happy to meet with you and provide as many of those examples as you would like. I have an organization that I founded after I turned my pain into purpose. I don't need the notes, but thank you, husband. He is my very good supporter. I love you. I started an organization called More for Public Support of Prison Reform. It used to be called More for Change, and the More stands for mothers and others rallying and educating for public support of prison reform. And I haven't been to these for a long time. I came to for a long time. Several years ago, I came to a jail task force meeting, but I decided to come back to support the Restorative Justice Coalition and all others who have spoken here tonight for restorative justice. The main reason I haven't come is because I do a lot of work with prison legislation for the state and raising public awareness about that. But in anticipating wanting to become involved in this process, albeit late in the game, I did some research reading quickly this weekend and found that jails are what is driving mass incarceration in the United States. Only 10% of the jail population are generally speaking, across the board, are in there waiting to go to prison. I am the one who has the flyer for the last 5 years at both of Whatcom County's jails that says that I have a support and information and advocacy group for those who have loved ones in prison. I have a son who is serving his third prison sentence who has been in Whatcom County jail many times and other jails around the state. I have another son who has successfully transitioned his life into a screaming success for the last 4 years. I work with families all of the time. I came from that meeting tonight. I'm tired. It's emotionally wearing, but we are stakeholders. We're not recognized as voices for the incarcerated. We are the ones looking from the inside out. We can give a different perspective. We know it all too well. I've been living it for 15 years. So anyway, my name is Deborah Holly. I'm a welcome resource for you, and I thank you for your time.
Did she leave your name?
Uh-huh.
Number?
I've already got her number here.
Yeah, you've got all the contact information there. Thank you, Barbara.
Susan Walker, Chris Phillips, and Michael Plummer.
Suzanne Walker, Bellingham, Washington. And I don't have any suggestions for you for what to do, but I have toured the jail twice in 2 different years' time. And you keep talking about beds, and you folks have been in there. You see what those blow-up canoes look like that these men and women sleep on. Also, Sheriff Elfo has informed us that they're one of the largest food services facilities here in Whatcom County, and their kitchen is not adequate. Their storage of food is not adequate. And just think, folks, of the electronic system that it was there, 40 years, 20 years ago, 30 years ago? How many of you have had to change to get a new Comcast modem in your house just to update your house? You're asking these men and women, these nurses, these doctors, these volunteers, these teachers, these psychologists to work in a facility that none of you would ever put yourself in to work. And it's our job to provide a state-of-the-art, earthquake-proof building that has a kitchen that's adequate to feed the number of meals that they prepare 3 times a day, and bathroom facilities, water facilities, electronics. Get the electronics up to date so these folks have the safety equipment within the building when they're working with these each other, their families, and the folks that are inside the prison. And I want to say that both times that I was in there, the prison, the sheriff's people were more than kind, gentle, and very positive with the inmates. And I was proud to see it. So thank you.
Thank you. Chris Phillips, Michael Plummer, and Charlie Storrs.
My name is Chris Phillips. I work at Peace Health St. Joseph Medical Center, and I live in the Geneva area of Whatcom County. Thank you for holding this public hearing. And I'm here to speak in support of a new jail and also to request that there be a concurrent, substantive, and time-framed planning effort to develop behavioral health diversion and treatment programs for people with severe mental illness and substance abuse problems. As a nonprofit Catholic healthcare institution, we're guided by a set of values. One is social justice. So it's a core value, and because of this, we lend our voice to show compassion for the mentally ill and those with serious substance abuse problems. At the same time, stewardship, being good stewards of one's resources, is also one of our core values. And thus, we understand that there are fiscal constraints. Another Peace Health value is the respect for individual dignity and worth. Our physicians and nurses in the emergency department know very well on a regular basis how important a new jail is to inmates and to the corrections staff. Current conditions, as we've heard over and over again tonight, and I'm sure you've heard over and over for years, are simply intolerable. We need a new jail, and there's only so much money. So what do? The honest answer, and you're not going to like this, that's why we elected you and the county executive. But I would add that there's a fourth value that guides our work at Peace Health, and that's collaboration. While we look to the council and to the county executive to help guide this discussion, we remain committed to being a part of the solution. We welcome the opportunity to be part of a concurrent planning process to develop diversion and treatment programs that will, by the way, increase the likelihood of voter approval for a much-needed jail. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Plummer, Charlie Storrs, and Roger Hull. Any of those folks still here? Go ahead. You can cut in line.
My name is Charlie Storrs, and I'm a homeowner in the Roosevelt neighborhood. One of the arguments I've heard is that we definitely need a new jail, and I totally agree with that. the argument seems to continue any jail is better than the one we have. The one we built 30 years ago, I was not around at the time, but I'm sure they didn't just decide to throw up a piece of crap. They must have really thought they were building the state-of-the-art jail, and the fact that it was falling apart 10 years later makes me mighty suspicious. I don't think you want to build just any jail. You talking about a jail that's going to last 50 years, I really don't think you can rush into something like that. One of the things you can change about the current situation is there is really no reentry program for the people getting out of jail. Most of the people in jail, especially for the petty or property crimes, things like that, have problems which are not being addressed. And just to let them back out means that they're going to continue to not be addressed. So I think you can really think more about some sort of a meaningful reentry program to try and get these people back into society. The third thing I want to say is the fact is a lot of those people have not had their day in court yet. They've had several days in court. The prosecutor or the defense keeps on going for continuance and kicking the ball down the road, and they're sitting there. Somebody said $100 a day. I have no clue if that's the right figure, but that's a high price to pay for not getting justice. And eventually, they get worn down. One of the side or the other is going to offer a plea deal for time served. That's going to sound really good to the inmate. The prosecutor gets a win. He gets a conviction. The defense attorney gets a win. It's not for the charge that was originally there. And the inmate is much, much more cynical about the whole system than before. This is something you can address because the prosecutors are your employees. And you could, I don't know how this would work, but we got to find a way to incentivize these prosecutors and defense attorneys to get the ball off the court. They can't just keep on kicking it down the road, leaving these people in jail or waiting for another hearing. The other thing that happens is if you do get bail and you're out on your own recognizance and you miss a court date, well, then you got a bench warrant for you. So now I've got another offense for somebody who's not dealing with the system. So thank you for your time and thank you for holding this hearing.
Thank you. Roger Hall, Dave Finney, and Russell Harris.
Hello, my name is Roger Hall. I've lived in Whatcom County since 1988. About three months ago, I became connected with the Restorative Community Coalition, and I saw that they had dug in pretty deep into the jail project, and it's something I'm interested in. Tonight, I'm speaking primarily from a background as a builder. Worked in construction over 30 years. I was a licensed contractor in Bellingham from 96 to 2012. When I was asked to join the board of the coalition, I had some hesitancy digging and putting so much time into reading the environmental impact statements and the jail construction. But that was my background, and so I dug in and I've read several hundred pages, and I've tried to become aware of what has been done. I want to thank everyone for their efforts. There's been a lot of work done. As a contractor, I found that my job was often running interference so that other people could do their job. I have worked under the American Institute of Architects contract. They're a prestigious organization. Many municipalities have used this to facilitate projects thousands of times, and to great success. That said, there are safeguards within these plans. There are also advantages, and I would have to say those with more experience tend to have the advantages when it comes to working these contracts. I've inspected homes and properties, and I'll say that 20 years ago at Bellingham Technical College, it was commonplace ethically that if you inspected a property, you were not the one that did the repair. It's another thing if somebody says, hey, this is what I want to do. I think the trouble is I'm asking, is there a conflict of interest? Because, frankly, I think that the architecture firm has too much to gain financially about dragging this on and making this cost too much. And I think you need a facilitator to get it in-house, and I would urge that this be done in-house and to the appropriate budget that you asked. Because when I hear an architect say they want a statement, I always say, wait till you get their statement.
Time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dave Finney, Russell Harris, and then Kim Harris.
Dave Finney, live out in Everson, and I'm the Executive Director of the Opportunity Council. And a lot of great points made here tonight. It's this is a very complicated issue, and you obviously have your hands full. I just want to refer back to some of the things that were said by Greg Winter, Larry Thompson, and Chris Phillips. And I think especially Chris Phillips, his testimony, I think is something that really should be considered, because I think that Peace Health is a big part of the solution and how we work collaboratively within the community. Opportunity Council, we support the construction of a new correctional facility. I'm not going to weigh in where, how big, or anything like that. A lot of that work's already been done. The current facility is not humane and not safe for staff and the detainees, and so obviously something needs to happen there. I think that Whatcom County, City of Bellingham, nonprofits in the community have done a lot of good work around homelessness and behavioral health. The county health department's done a great job, but there's still a lot of great work to be done too. And I think there are some good examples tonight about how things can continue to move forward. From our perspective, we'd like to see the behavioral health or triage center or urgent care center, whichever terminology you choose to use, expansion included as part of phase 1 and not deferred until when the new jail is opened. Because I think that's kind of kicking the can down the road in terms of dealing with diversion issues. We believe it's a triage or urgent care center to be maximized. It needs to be separate from the jail, and I think that that's something that was recommended by the jail task force. We had a great community process that made some good recommendations. I also understand that we need to move forward on the jail too, but can we figure out a way to move forward, support something happening this fall, and move forward with both things at the same time? There is funding out there for behavioral health services, but we don't have a facility to deliver the services in. So that's a big piece of it. If we prioritize our investment in diversion for providing more behavioral health services and reducing recidivism, there will be hopefully be no need for expanding the jail facility to 700 beds or phase 2 in the future. And I don't see how we can disconnect diversion from the construction of a jail, because they're ultimately connected in terms of future expansion of the jail. So thanks a lot for this opportunity. I think it's been a lot of good information here. I hope it helps.
Thank you. Russell Harris, Kim Harris, and Jim, I think it's Ace. Any of those folks here? How about Jalia Lewis? And after Jalia, Patrick Allisey and Kim Harris.
Good evening. I would like to also thank you all for opening this up to the public. I would like to answer previous...
Can you start with your name?
I'm sorry, Jalia Lewis.
Thanks.
Thank you. City of Bellingham resident. I would like to answer some of a question that someone else asked about being proud. And I would like to just quickly say that I am proud of this community. I am proud of the people that work inside the jail. I have also seen the things that other people have said, guards treating people very humanely, working in conditions that most of us would not prefer to work in. But I'm also proud of all the social service workers in this town and all the amazing innovative ideas that have been brought forth tonight. And as a taxpayer and a voter in August or November, I want to be able to vote for both. I want to be able to vote to keep the working conditions of the people that we're all proud of safe and the conditions for the inmates safe, but I also want to be able to vote for alternatives and diversion and restorative justice and all the great things we've heard about tonight. And I don't want this issue to become divisive in our community, which is my big concern, because this community is full of people who care about each other, about their own families, about other families, and I just would respectfully request that we could, as a community, keep this issue so that voters and taxpayers can have both. We can support both. We don't have to choose a safe jail over diversion. We don't have to choose diversion over a safe jail and keeping the people we care about safe, that we could have both. So again, I just really would like to continue to be proud of this community that I've lived in for a long time, and I would like us to be on the forefront of innovation, and I would like us to follow the lead of unprecedented bipartisan support on reform, and just really take off with the way that the nation is going and support everyone here. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Patrick, and then Kim Harris, and that's the last one on my list, unless there's more lists, but anybody else who wants to speak certainly will get a chance.
Patrick Ellett.
Mr. Brown.
Sorry, go ahead. I think Wendy Harris wants to come down. Sorry, Wendy.
Yeah, well, they can all, anybody else that's left.
I can arm wrestler for it.
No, go ahead, Patrick.
Sorry, Patrick.
Patrick, you're up.
Do it. My apologies for interrupting. That's okay. Patrick Ellis, 84825 Alderson Road, Birch Bay. I'm leaving town for a couple days, and when I do, I tell stories about Bill Elfo. He's great. The sheriffs are great. And 2 weeks ago, I thought about you guys, because you did a little thing, or one of your just did a little thing, and I thought it's really great to be in an area where government works. Well, let me tell you, you've got your work cut out. I love the testimony that people gave. If I could add one more positive thing to it, I would. I'll just stop there. Well, okay, it's my uncle's watch. I'll tell you about it someday. Some of you know about it.
Thank you. Anybody else? Wendy.
That's why I started early. Good evening. My name is Wendy Jones, and in addition to being a citizen of Whatcom County, I am the Chief Corrections Deputy for the jail. The one thing I'd ask the council to do is realize this is not a zero-sum game. You've heard a lot of folks speak very eloquently about some excellent programs. They're ones that, similar ones or partial ones that we try and put forward in the jail. We've developed wonderful relationships with a variety of different social service agencies, from Compass Health to WAHA to St. Joe's Peace Health, because we've discovered that working together we can do more for this very defined and needy population. Earlier this afternoon, the county executive came up and explained to you that with the interlocal agreement that is being proposed, that will cover the bonding cost to build a new jail. At the same time, he took a great deal of time to explain to you that there was no reason that we can't put forward things such as the triage center and looking at jail alternatives. Talking about collaboration, which is what Mr. Phillips did from the hospital, this is a perfect example of it. I work every day in the basement of a building that's falling apart. Everybody who's come up here says, yes, we need a new jail. A lot of them have said, but. I would also encourage you to stop at we need a new jail. Part of that has to be continuing and looking at diversion programs, strengthening the reentry programs we already have, making sure that we've got facilities and the ability to treat people who are not safe in the community. One of the things that none of the speakers have talked about is the phenomena that you may not realize that occurs.
The folks that we get in the jail, we cannot turn away. We have booked individuals and held them and treated them who have been trespassed at detox. They've been trespassed at the hospital. They've been trespassed at the mission. They've been trespassed from Interfaith and CMAR, who are companies and practitioners that we use to refer offenders to. These are people who, because of substance abuse or mental health issues, are so out of control and so dangerous, it's not safe for community providers to try and help them. We need to make sure that when this new jail is built, there's also the robust programs there to treat the people who are too ill to be anyplace else. I think that we can do that collaboratively as a community. I think that Executive Laus has brought forward a very good idea on how to move both of those things forward in tangent. And I would ask you to keep that in mind during your deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wendy, what do you mean have been trespassed?
Not allowed back.
Oh.
They're not allowed back. They're told that they have to leave and cannot come back. So, and it's because of the behavior, and I can't blame any of the agencies for it. We unfortunately don't have that luxury. If they present at our door, we have to take them. So, thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to open it up to anybody else that wants to speak, and Rhonda, you're front of the line.
Or the back of the line, however you want to look at it. I didn't realize there was a sign up. Okay, I'm Ronna Lurch, and I live in Everson, Washington. I am a retired RN. I have worked since I came here at the Community Mental Health Center in 1980. Reaganomics took over, and the block grants for mental health care in the community were discontinued. And it has been downhill ever since. A violently mentally ill person does not belong in jail. They belong in a facility in the community for violently mentally ill people. That we don't have those facilities is unfortunate, and I think we need them. There's been a lot of motivating for you folks out of fear that there is going to be some horrible, catastrophic event that will occur in the current jail. So my first recommendation would be that you get some people out of the jail. This gentleman right behind me spoke very eloquently about a lot of people in our jail who are just there kind of waiting for something to happen. Get them out. Get out the nonviolent offenders. Get out, hire that half-time person. I read that in the paper. Hopefully, that was about a week ago. Hopefully you've done that by now so that those people can be called to come to do what they need to do, because these people have problems with their cognitive ability. I also got a little confused because it seemed like from Laus and the sheriff's report that things were going along really swimmingly, but yet we were asked to come to this public hearing, and the Bellingham Herald reports that you've been asking the county executive for 2 years to come up with alternatives, and they really haven't done that. So we're here now to try to help you. So many people have spoken already. Irene Morgan, I get from her a link about every other day of an incredible program out here in the world. I hope, and she just told me that she sends those to you. So you got a lot of stuff to pour through. Hopefully you're giving them over to the executive. The lead program in the paper was, I thought, just a terrific thing. University of Washington, a research program. The research is done. It's showing that it's decreasing the cost tremendously. Also, Homes First. I heard another housing something, but Homes First. Salt Lake City has reduced their homeless population from 1,000 down to something like 100 left to go in a program called Homes First. People shouldn't be in jail because there is no place to sit in the city. They've taken out the benches. So now it's against the law to sit on the sidewalk, and these are homeless people. So the current jail plan is a little outmoded in thinking, and I think that you have certainly got a lot of input tonight with some good ideas. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Looks like there's only a couple of us left.
My name is Terry, and I live on Lummi Island. And just wanted to first comment, what an interesting evening. I've attended quite a few meetings because I've been on the jail discussion for over 4 years now, and there's always something new to learn and lots of passion. And you do have a big job. But I wanted to give you a little bit of my background in that I was introduced to the jail system about 25 years ago because my husband's a chaplain. And he was one of the lead chaplains with the highest clearance in King County. And now he's the lead chaplain here in Whatcom County. So at that time, I had also been invited to develop a program for the Twin Rivers facility, which I don't know if you know that, but that was at the time a facility for sex offenders. They needed to be isolated in their own building, their own facility, which is next to the Monroe Prison. So that's a big example of categorizing offenders by their crime. And that's just one piece of it. At the time, being a chaplain, very compassionate about second chances and forgiveness and restorative justice, I was of the mindset of you do the crime, you do the time. 4 years ago, I was invited to this conversation by Sheriff Elfo, as my background was public relations, marketing, and lobbying. And I spent about easily 3 weeks in our jail with cameras, interviewing the correction officers, which I must say are some of the finest people I have ever met, and also interviewed some of the inmates, which was really interesting, and then also the medical employees and the volunteers. The first couple of days, I thought everybody's going to be really nice to me because they know why I'm there. It's to convince the decision makers to build a new jail. By the third week, everybody's still really nice, and now I'm seeing them in very strong conflicts with inmates. And there's times when I needed, with the camera person, to be ushered out for my own safety. So that was a deeper level of understanding. A note for Larry Meyers, who was the one that spoke about the fire drill. In that fire drill, what was emphasized to us, because I also saw the footage, and we used it as part of our presentation to convince you a few years ago to make a decision to build a new jail, was the fact that most
30
likely
seconds, please.
The fire would be electrical, which means you have to get a key, a manual key, and unlock all those cells, including the elevator. A piece that's not been mentioned is there are programs already in place in the jail outside of the mental health and the other issues that we've been talking about. Sheriff Elf and I went to Bellingham Technical College, and they've established a very strong relationship to teach work skills, introduce them in the jail, bridge them into the technical college campus.
Time.
And there are others with the Literacy Council and teaching skills for GED and financial skills and parenting skills. Thank you.
Thank you.
Council, thank you. Michael Bursch, I'm in Ferndale. Just to quickly address a couple of ideas that have been put out here today. One is cash bail. Usually judges impose that because they want the person to stay exactly where he is, in jail. The other one is there's an old defense. I think there was somebody who said, gee, we ought to just let them out. You know, they're just hanging in there. The defense lawyers keep making continuances. I think there's an old saying is that justice delayed is just as well as an old defense thing. So you just can't blame the lawyers there and the judges. I was looking up some stuff here before I came down. I just wanted to give you some figures. In the last 20 years in this country, there's been over 250 million arrests. There is, as of 2014, the FBI maintains a criminal database. In mid-2014, there's 77.7 million Americans on that list. For every adult, as you look around this room, every adult in the United States, for every 2 in 7 people have a criminal record. Every 1 in 12 has a felony conviction. So when you hear people talk about, gee, maybe our justice system has lost its wheels, I sympathize with those folks. However, having said that, the jail is the choke point. No matter what we talk about, when we talk about diversion programs, what we're really talking about is post-jail programs. It's the jail that collects everyone. It's the jail that society has said, we'll bring the people in. We don't go around arresting, we don't go around taking people off the street because they're mentally ill. We don't go around taking people off the street because they're poor. We don't go around taking people off the street because they're stupid. We don't go around taking people off the street for willy-nilly ideas. We take people off the street because they commit crimes. When they commit crimes, they go in the system. When they go in the system, the jail is the choke point. All right? I had the pleasure of touring the jail with Sheriff Elfo along with my wife, who's a council member in Ferndale, so I was a tag-along spouse. The jail is deplorable. All right? We have
30
to do
seconds,
something.
please.
We need to remember that most of the people in jail have not been convicted of a crime. Jail is not prison. There is a difference. Jail is for temporarily holding people. Most of those people have not been convicted. They're waiting for a hearing. They're presumed innocent. At the current arrest record, every 1 in 20 people in Whatcom County will visit that jail, not voluntarily. So when you go to a high school and you look at a classroom of seniors and you look around and you see 20 seniors, one of those people are going to jail. When you go to that campus, one of those people of every 20 is going to that jail. You don't want them to go to that jail. Thank you.
Thank you. I see a few more standing up. If there's anybody else and you want to move to the front, that'd be great.
Good evening, Elliot Fine, Bellingham resident. There's a lot been said tonight regarding the need for a jail and also the need for mental health facilities. I believe that we do have a need for both of those. I, too, sometimes tell stories of Bill Elfo back there, and usually they're good stories. I like Bill. I think he does a great job for us. One of the things that concerns me is that we built a jail in the 80s, which is not that long ago, and it's falling apart. So there was a contractor that came up here before who I think was trying to get to that point in that please look at what the heck went wrong that this city built a facility that was so totally inadequate that 10 years after it was built, it was falling apart. The tales I hear right now, we have buildings in this town, and I've been elsewhere, and I've been into other continents where there's buildings that are hundreds of years old that have held up fairly well. We have some here in this town that are 50, 60, 70 years old, and they're doing okay. Now, without some maintenance, but the stories of something like this where concrete's falling down, et cetera, the other problems that they're having seem to me to be of paramount importance as you go forward to building a new jail, that you look at, you find whatever the mistakes were that were made in having that facility built and make darn sure that you don't make those in the new one that I really hope you will say we will go put on the ballot for us voters to decide to build. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Carol Perry, Whatcom County. I have so many things I have to pick and choose here. Want you to remember the number one purpose of government is public safety and law enforcement. That's top for all of us if we analyze it. Lots of different ways to enforce that idea, but this afternoon I was really frustrated listening to the hearing with the executive because it seemed like the council was saying they didn't have information. And this hearing, I think, proves that there's been tons of information. I remember when the task force was here and what they said. I remember the day, there's probably been 12 15 meetings. The location wasn't right. The number of beds wasn't right. That was a different day. The company that was chosen wasn't right. Their first presentation wasn't right. $89 million was too much. And then the certification, that was another issue. I mean, it's just been, like they say, kicking the can down the road. Well, I just want to add, last Thursday, we were invited to go through the jail. I mean, we've been hearing this for 2 or 3 years. We went through the jail, and when my husband and I finished, or at the end of it, we looked at each other and we thought of a very good purpose for that jail. We should take all of our children and our grandchildren through that jail. That's a wonderful purpose for that jail. Because if they go through that jail, they will never even think of doing anything that would land them there. I mean, it's scary. It's really scary. But I just want you to remember, the number one purpose of government is public safety and law
30
enforcement.
seconds, please.
And if you do that, it'll be way high on the priority list. And if we have to eliminate anything else, it's okay.
Thank you. Anybody else after this gentleman?
Evening, Cliff Langley, Whatcom County. 1984, I was hired as a corrections officer. I was the last person hired before we moved into the new jail. Almost from day one, that jail had issues. It was poorly constructed. Build a new jail. It needs to be done. It's not going to go away, and putting it off isn't going to do anything except increase your costs. You need to take care of that business now. There's programs out there. There's always going to be programs out there. Don't worry about the programs. Get the building built. The programs will be there. And there'll be people offering their services. And there'll be people that want to do programs. Get the building built. Don't keep putting it off. I was on the 2004 Jail Yes Committee. The citizens voted for money for the jail because they recognized we needed a jail. When are you guys going to move? I mean, you can't keep putting it off. You've got to get it done. Programs are out there. Don't worry about the programs. They'll come. Someone mentioned, the rest about the FTAs. The criminals out there that are career criminals, they know that they're just going to get kicked loose out of the jail because there's no room. I was a deputy sheriff, and that was one of the things that they would tell me. Well, they're just going to kick me out. I'll be out in a few hours. Because they knew that there's no room until they're going to get kicked out. So that's why you have all those FTA warrants, is because people know what's going on. I guess the one thing that I would also say, if you want another program, look at your community policing program and give the sheriff some more people to do community policing. When I was the deputy for the resident deputy out in Paradise for 4 years. I was a resident deputy in Birch Bay for 3 years. If you get the right people in those positions, they will have an effect on your crime and who gets arrested and how many
seconds,
people
please.
go into that jail. So take a look at maybe giving the sheriff some more people to do community policing. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I'm Candace Wilson. Good evening. My family comes with a background in law enforcement. My husband is a retired law enforcement officer and a retired member of the armed forces. And so I'm very familiar with the work that our public servants do for our community, for our public safety. And when you speak of public safety, the most important thing about public safety is not only the officer, the citizen, but also a person that may be in a situation that is unfortunate for themselves and others. But what I wanted to make sure, I'm thankful that the community is allowed this opportunity for this hearing this evening. And I guess everything happens for a reason, because that's not why I was here tonight, but I'm glad to listen to what the community has shared. And knowing and understanding the policy levels, not only from the sheriff to the executive, to the task force, to the law and justice, and now here at the council, I think it's very important to make sure we have representatives that we select and that we elect at the table listening to the public hearing, and their representation and them being presented to the community, so that we know that we are being heard not only by you but them. You are the ones that help guide us and give us the vision and give directives for the staff to follow through with. So I myself would have liked to have known if anyone was here from the task force or the law and justice, and also to mention that with the inmate population, it would be, and I know the intentions of the Law and Justice Commission selection of the committee members identifies the representation. Now, I just want to make sure that the diversification of the population is being represented, because we know that some of the population has a higher rate than others. So those are the communities that we are affecting. And if we're not listening to their voice, then how good are we doing? How effective do we really want to be? And if you have one problem, what are the 3 solutions to help you resolve the matter? Thank you for your time. Haishka.
Thank you.